Tuesday, 26th of May, 1914. Masonic Hall, Battleburn. Welcome back to 39 Steps, everyone. We're heading to do a talk with the Liberal candidate with the upcoming by-election, no doubt. Oh, wow. Impressive looking building. The hall had about 500 in it, women mostly, a lot of bald heads and a dozen or two young men. I don't suppose the bald heads were the women. The chairman was a Weasley minster with a reddish nose. He lamented on Crumpleton's absence, soliloquised on his influenza and gave me a certificate as a trusted leader of Australian thought. There were 2 policemen at the door, and I hope they took note of that testimonial. Then Sir Harry started. Sir Harry's speech. His notes. He had about a bushel of notes from which he read, and when he let go of them, he fell into one prolonged stutter. Every now and then he remembered a phrase he had learned by heart, straightened his back and gave it off like Henry Irving. The next moment he was bent double and crooning over his papers. The German menace. He talked about the German menace and said it was all a Tory invention to cheat the poor of their rights to keep back the great flood of social reform. But that organised Labour realised this and laughed at the Tories to scorn. The British Navy. He was all for reducing our navy as a proof of our good faith and then sending Germany an ultimatum telling her to do the same or we would knock her into the cocked hat. Or the cocked hat, in fact. Peace and reform. He said that, but for the Tories, Germany and Britain would be fellow workers in peace and reform. I thought of the little black book in my pocket, a giddy lot Scudder's friends cared for peace and reform. All in all, in a queer way, I liked the speech. You could see the niceness of the chap shining out behind the muck with which he had been spoon-fed. I mightn't be much of an orator, but I was 1,000% better than Sir Harry. I simply told them all I could remember about Australia. All about its Labour Party and the immigration and universal service, praying there should be no Australian there. I doubt if I remembered to mention the free trade, but I said there was no Tories in Australia, only Labour and Liberals. And I started in to tell them the kind of glorious business I thought could be made out of the empire if we really put our backs into it. Altogether, I fancy I was rather a success. The minister didn't like me, though.
I'd like to propose a vote of thanks to Sir Harry for his statesmanlike speech, and to Mr. Twisden, whose words had the eloquence of an emigration agent.
A ripping speech, Twisden. Now, you're coming home with me. I'm all alone, and if you'll stop a day or two, I'll show you some very decent fishing.
Back at Sir Harry's, we had a hot supper and then drank grog. The time had come for me to put my cards on the table. I saw by this man's eye that he was the kind you can trust.
Listen, Sir Harry. I've something pretty important to say to you. You're a good fellow, and I'm going to be frank. Where on earth did you get that poisonous rubbish you talked tonight?
Oh, was it as bad as that? It did sound rather thin. I got most of it out of the Progressive magazine, and pamphlets that agent chap of mine keeps sending me. But you surely don't think Germany would ever go to war with us?
Ask that question in 6 weeks, and it won't need an answer. If you'll give me your attention for half an hour, I'm going to tell you a story.
I blinkered no detail.
So you see, you have got here in your house the man that is wanted for the Portland Place murder. Your duty is to send your car for the police and give me up. I don't think I'll get very far. There'll be an accident, and I'll have a knife in my ribs an hour or so after arrest. Nevertheless, it's your duty as a law-abiding citizen. Perhaps in a month's time you'll be sorry, but you have no cause to think of that.
He was looking at me with bright, steady eyes.
What was your job in Rhodesia, Mr. Hannay?
Mining engineer. I've made my pile cleanly, and I've had a good time in the making of it.
Not the profession that weakens the nerves, is it?
As to that, my nerves are good enough.
I took the hunting knife and did the old Mashuna trick of tossing it in the air and catching it in my lips.
I don't want proof. I may be an ass on the platform, but I can size up a man. You're no murderer, and you're no fool. I believe you're speaking the truth. I'm going to back you up. Now, what can I do?
First, I want you to write a letter to your uncle. I've got to get in touch with the government people sometime before the 15th of June.
He pulled his moustache.
That won't help you. This is Foreign Office business, and my uncle would have nothing to do with it. Besides, you'd never convince him. No. I'll go one better. I'll write to the Permanent Secretary at the Foreign Office. He's my godfather and one of the best going. Now, what do you want?
He sat down at the table and wrote to my dictation. Dear Walter, I hope this letter finds you well, and I must apologise for not being in touch for such a long while. I am finding all my time taken up with this political business, even to the detriment of my fishing. Anyway, on to important matters. Without sounding overly enigmatic, I am writing to say that if a man called Twisden happens to make your acquaintance before the 15th of June this year, it would be to your benefit to treat him kindly, despite what he may look like. This Twisden chap will prove his bona fide by passing the words at Blackstone and whistling Annie Laurie. Listen carefully to him, dear uncle. He has something to say. Dear uncle, I thought he was a godfather. He has something to say that might just wake you up. Cheerio and happy hunting, Harry. Well done, Harry.
Good. That's the proper style. Oh, by the way, you'll find my godfather, his name's Sir Walter Bullivant, down at his country cottage for Whitsuntide. It's close to Artonswell on the Kennet. And that's done. Now, what's the next thing?
You're about my height. Lend me the oldest tweed suit you've got. Anything will do, so long as the colour is the opposite of the clothes I destroyed this afternoon. Then, show me a map of the neighbourhood and explain to me the lie of the land. Lastly, if the police come seeking me, just show them the car in the glen. If the other lot turn up, tell them I caught the South Express after your meeting.
He did, or promised to do, all these things. I shaved off the remnants of my moustache and got inside the ancient suit of what I believe is called heather mixture. The map gave me some notion of my whereabouts and told me the two things I wanted to know: where the main railroad to the south could be joined and what were the wildest districts near at hand. He wakened me from my slumbers in the smoking room armchair and led me blinking into the dark starry night. To the tool shed we go. An old bicycle was found in a tool shed and handed over to me.
First, turn to the right, up by the long fir wood. By daybreak, you'll be well into the hills. Then, I should pitch the machine into a bog and take to the moors on foot. You can put in a week among the shepherds and be as safe as if you were in New Guinea.
Thank you.
Think nothing of it. You got me out of a tight spot last night. Now, you better get cracking. Good luck.
To the hills! I pedalled diligently up the steep roads of a hill gravel till the skies grew pale with morning.